Nobody should be surprised by this. Your obedient servant, that's me, stated that it would happen on this site within the last few days. The privatised water companies in England have apologised for repeatedly pumping sewage into the country's waterways and the sea around the British Isles, and have promised £10 billion of investment to modernise the sewer system. But here's the small print. Shareholders in water companies will initially fund the investments. However, the costs will be recouped from customers through unspecified increases in their bills determined by regulators, in a move which threatens to add further pressure to household costs. So, water customers are being made to pay extra for emergency work that should have been carried out since privatisation happened and funded from the bills we have been paying. The water firms have never done this, despite it being promised to us when they were originally privatised, because it would have interfered with their ability to pump £65 billion to shareholders in the same period of time. On the BBC's Politics Live, it has been said that the water firm's most recent annual payment to shareholders was £1.4 billion, up from £540 million the year before. So they've nearly tripled the profits they're paying shareholders, while charging us for the investment in improvements that they should be providing from the cash they're handing out in dividends. Are you angry yet? If so, you're still not nearly angry enough. The panellists on Politics Live were angry though.
There is a disconnect between the level of service they deliver to the bill payer in the UK and their objective, which is shareholder value. And I think there should have been a much tougher regime like they have in the United States with the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to actually hit these companies where it hurts.
This has been going on for years and people are just fed up. Our rivers are dying and people are seeing it now with their own eyes. So what we need is mandatory testing, we need automatic fines, and we need to make sure that the people who are running the companies are held accountable. That hasn't been happening. And
but it is actually a legal requirement already, I think. Most of those things, real-time data on sewage spills.
Joe.
No, so
it's not. So you need a government that's active and interested and is going to enforce what's been going wrong. Because at the moment, it has been a bit of a free-for-all with people who use these rivers every day, reporting problems, not having their voices heard, and then eventually something might get done, and there may be a fine, which frankly, is a tip of the iceberg for some of these companies. And people are fed up. They're seeing the salaries of the bosses. They're seeing the dividends.
So they should be the ones who pay.
Yes, they're seeing the dividends to shareholders, and they're wondering why they, as bill payers, are going to have to foot the bill.
If a major electric company, senior management were told repeatedly that there were huge amounts of live wires lying around their network and did nothing, and someone stood on one and died, it would be logical to bring a criminal prosecution against them. I think we need that sort of logic with the water companies, because this stuff actually does kill people. So I agree with Stuart that you would need to very carefully look at making it criminal, very carefully. But I think if these bosses realised that they are knowingly poisoning people and doing nothing, there could be a legal case to answer.
Yeah, well,
but it's sort of come to be seen as this problem for a lot of, come to be seen by a lot of people as sort of the sort of representation of Tory Britain falling apart. That you can't get a GP appointment, you can't go for a swim without there being sewage around you. And I think it doesn't just come back to the water companies. It's about a government needing to tackle it.
Despite handing out billions in dividends, it seems the water companies are also in debt, totalling £54 billion. And now they're pleading poverty as the reason they're going to take this extra cash from us. You won't have any say in whether you pay it or not, remember. The water companies in each part of England have a monopoly there.
over time, the way the system works is that there will be modest upward pressure on customer bills over the full lifetime of the asset. So over 50 years, or perhaps even longer, maybe up to 100 years, customers do contribute to that investment program. But our research suggests...
Why should customers pay over the next century for what water companies, the sewage that water companies are pumping into our seas and rivers?
Well, you know, if you wanted to invest in a house, you'd have to borrow to invest and get a mortgage and pay that back. I think people understand that
if the house was solidly built, absolutely, completely agree with you. But not to pay for sewage that shouldn't be pumped into our rivers and
I think if you look at the financial...
Already the government has been forced to defend the demand for you to pay more to get the improvements that British Water was privatised in order to provide.
Imagine if a garbage disposal company decided that it was cheap and quick to dump rubbish in the centre of our town centres, disrupting all of those businesses, or local authorities chose to dump it in swimming pools because it was cheap for them, disrupting people who want to take their families swimming. That's exactly what these water companies have been doing. In the coastal areas, they've been wrecking tourism in those seaside towns and stopping people swimming in our rivers. Now, this is totally intolerable, and now they're telling us to put all of this right, they're going to charge us all £10 billion. So when are we going to get a statement on that?
Well, I shall certainly make sure that the Secretary of State has heard his request for a statement, but I don't think what the Honourable Gentleman says is quite correct. The only way to end storm overflows and sewage going into our rivers and around our coast is to invest in infrastructure and upgrade that. Work has started. Now we have legislated every water company has to have that plan in place. They have to meet those targets. It is a shared cost, but I would give him some hope. We know where this work has already been done in London, for example, with Thames Water, that the cost to the bill payer has not been great. And we've got to make this investment. It will be shared between bill payers, all of us, and those companies, and it needs to be done.
Labour's Richard Bergen has the right idea. Enough of this rip-off, he says. Bring water into public ownership. And the reason that renationalisation is the answer is simple. It cuts out the parasites who've taken £66 billion that could have been used to modernise the water and sewage infrastructure. Without those shareholders taking all that money and doing nothing to improve the system, water prices could have been much lower as well, and that was the other promise made to us when Margaret Thatcher's Tories privatised water. The whole process of water privatisation has been a massive con that has cost the British people tens of billions of pounds. Amazingly, despite having had an opportunity to demand an end to it at 8 general elections, the electorate has apparently been happy to accept this daylight robbery. Are you going to accept this latest insult? Not just to your finances, but to your intelligence.